I found the door slightly open, their voices low, discussing numbers that meant nothing to me. The wine in my hand felt warm, matching the heat spreading through my chest as I watched them. Owen's sharp jawline catching the dim light, Levi's confident posture as he leaned back in his chair. They hadn't noticed me yet, but something about the way they moved, the quiet authority in their voices, made me linger in the doorway longer than I should have. When Owen finally looked up and our eyes met, his smile was slow, knowing, like, he'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Hey there. If you're enjoying what you're hearing so far, hit that like button and subscribe. I promise you won't want to miss where this goes next. Isabella. Owen's voice cut through the silence, smooth and deliberate. We were just finishing up. I stepped inside, the click of my heels on the marble floor echoing in the spacious office. Miami's skyline glittered through the floor to ceiling. Windows, but all I could focus on was the way both men straightened slightly as I approached. My husband had mentioned they were important clients, but he'd failed to mention how they carried themselves, like men who were used to getting exactly what they wanted. Don't stop on my account, I said, settling into the leather chair across from them. The wine had made me bolder than usual, more aware of the way the silk of my dress clung to my curves, more conscious of their eyes following my movements. I was just bringing you gentlemen something to drink. Levi reached for the bottle I'd set on the glass table, his fingers brushing mine as he took it. Your husband's a lucky man, he said, his voice carrying a weight that made my pulse quicken. Though I have to say, we're the ones feeling fortunate tonight. The air in the room shifted, charged with something unspoken. I should have excused myself, should have left them to their business, but something kept me rooted in place. Maybe it was the way Owen's gaze lingered on my lips when I spoke, or how Levi's attention never wavered from my face, making me feel like the most captivating woman in the world. Tell me about this deal you're working on, I said, crossing my legs slowly, deliberately. I'm curious about what keeps you both here so late. Owen leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. Real estate development? Luxury properties along the coast. His voice was low, intimate, like he was sharing a secret meant only for me. Though right now, I'm finding it hard to concentrate on business. The confession hung in the air between us, thick with implication. I felt my breath catch, my skin warming under their combined attention. Levi stood, moving to the window, but his reflection in the glass showed his eyes still fixed on me. Maybe we should move somewhere more comfortable, he suggested, gesturing toward the adjoining conference room. Away from all these contracts and paperwork, I knew what he was really suggesting, could feel it in the electric tension crackling between us. Every rational thought told me to decline, to make polite conversation and leave. Instead, I found myself standing, my body moving before my mind could catch up. Lead the way, I whispered. The conference room was dimmer, more intimate, with soft, leather seating arranged around a polished table. Owen dimmed the lights further while Levi poured fresh wine into crystal glasses. I settled onto the plush sofa, hyper-aware of every sensation, the cool leather against my skin, the warmth spreading through my limbs, the way both men moved with predatory grace. You know, Owen said, taking the seat beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Your husband talks about you constantly, but his words don't do you justice. His fingers found mine, intertwining with casual intimacy that sent electricity up my arm. On my other side, Levi sat down, his thigh pressing against mine, solid and warm. We've been curious about you for months, Levi admitted, his hand coming to rest on the back of the sofa, not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Every meeting, every dinner, he'd mention something new. How smart you are, how beautiful, how perfect. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized what was happening, what they were offering. The wine had lowered my inhibitions, but it was their genuine appreciation, the way they looked at me like I was something precious and desired, that made my decision for me. He's working late tonight, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Won't be home for hours. Owen's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand while Levi's fingers found the curve of my shoulder, both touches light but deliberate. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, charged with anticipation that made every nerve-ending sing. We could wait, Owen said, but his voice lacked conviction. His free hand came up to brush a strand of hair from my face, the gesture tender yet possessive. If you're not sure, I'm sure, I interrupted, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I want this, both of you. The admission hung in the air for a heartbeat before Levi leaned in, his lips finding the sensitive spot where my neck met my shoulder. I gasped, my head falling back as sensation cascaded through me. Owen's mouth claimed mine, his kiss deep and demanding, tasting of wine and promise. Their hands moved with practiced coordination, as if they'd done this before. reading each other's movements, ensuring I was surrounded by warmth and attention. Levi's fingers found the zipper at the back of my dress, while Owen's palm traced the line of my collarbone, both touches setting my skin ablaze. Beautiful, Levi murmured against my neck, his breath hot against my skin. Absolutely stunning. The dress slipped from my shoulders, pooling around my waist, and I felt exposed yet empowered under their hungry gazes. Owen's hands skimmed along my sides while Levi's lips blazed a trail down my spine, each touch deliberate, worshipful. I reached for Owen's tie, my fingers fumbling with the silk as desire clouded my thoughts. He helped me, his movements sure and swift, revealing the muscled chest beneath his crisp white shirt. Behind me, I heard the rustle of fabric as Levi shed his jacket, the anticipation building with each passing second. "Tell us what you want," Owen whispered, his forehead pressed against mine, his breath mingling with mine in the small space between us. "We want to give you everything." My response was lost in a gasp as Levi's hands found the clasp of my undergarments, his touch confident yet reverent. The last barriers fell away, leaving me bare and trembling between them, every inch of my skin alive with sensation. Owen pulled me onto his lap, my legs straddling his hips, while Levi pressed against my back, his chest warm and solid against my spine. The sensation of being caught between them, surrounded by their strength and desire, was overwhelming in the best possible way. "Perfect," Owen breathed, his hands settling on my hips, guiding me as I moved against him. "You feel incredible." Levi's mouth found my shoulder, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin there while his hands roamed freely, mapping every curve and hollow. I was drowning in sensation, lost in the rhythm they created, the perfect synchronization of their movements. Time seemed to stretch and compress, moments blurring together in a haze of pleasure and heat. Owen's touch was firm and sure, his body moving beneath mine with practiced skill, while Levi's hands and mouth never stopped their exploration, adding layers of sensation that built and crescendoed in waves. "Don't stop," I whispered, my voice barely recognizable even to my own ears. "Please, don't stop." They didn't. If anything, their attention intensified, Owen's grip tightening on my hips as he guided me faster, deeper, while Levi's hands traced patterns on my skin that left trails of fire in their wake. The pressure built inside me, coiling tighter with each movement, each touch, until I thought I might shatter from the intensity. When the release finally came, it crashed over me like a wave, stealing my breath and leaving me trembling in their arms. Owen's name fell from my lips like a prayer while Levi's hands steadied me, holding me together as the aftershocks rolled through my body. But they weren't finished with me yet. Levi's voice was low and rough when he spoke. My turn. They moved together with fluid grace, Owen lifting me easily while Levi took his place on the sofa. I found myself straddling Levi's powerful thighs, his hands immediately finding my waist, steadying me as I adjusted to this new configuration. "Look at me," he commanded softly, his dark eyes boring into mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "I want to see every expression, every reaction." Owen positioned himself behind me, his chest pressing against my back, his hands coming up to cup the fullness of my form. The sensation of being caught between them again, their combined heat and strength surrounding me, was intoxicating. Levi's touch was different from Owen's, more deliberate, more controlled, like he was savoring every second. His hands explored with unhurried precision, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch against him, what made soft sounds of pleasure escape my lips. "That's it," he murmured, his voice thick with approval. "Let us hear you. Let us know how good this feels." Owen's mouth found the curve of my neck, his lips and teeth alternating between gentle and demanding. His hands roamed freely, adding another layer of sensation that made it impossible to think, impossible to do anything but feel. The rhythm they established was different this time, slower, more intense, like they were determined to draw out every moment, every sensation. Levi's movements beneath me were measured and sure, while Owen's touch complemented perfectly, creating a symphony of pleasure that built with agonizing sweetness. "You're incredible," Owen whispered against my ear, his breath hot and ragged. "The way you move, the sounds you make, it's driving us both crazy." I could feel the truth of his words in the tension of their bodies, the barely restrained control they maintained for my benefit. It was heady, knowing I had this effect on them, knowing I could reduce two such powerful men to trembling desire with nothing but my presence. The pressure built again, different this time, deeper, more intense, spreading through my entire body like liquid fire. Levi's eyes never left mine, drinking in every expression, every gasp, while Owen's hands guided my movements, encouraging me to take what I needed. "Let go," Levi commanded, his voice rough with his own approaching climax. Let go for us. The second wave of release was even more powerful than the first, stealing my voice and leaving me shaking uncontrollably. Levi followed moments later, his grip tightening on my hips as he buried his face against my chest, while Owen's hands gentled their movements, easing me through the aftershocks. For long moments we stayed like that, a tangle of limbs and racing hearts, the only sound our ragged breathing slowly returning to normal. The conference room felt like its own world, separate from reality, where only the three of us existed. Eventually, Owen's hands found my shoulders, massaging the tension from muscles I hadn't realized were tight. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice soft with concern and satisfaction. "Amazing," I admitted, surprised by how true it was. "I never imagined what?" Levi prompted, his hands tracing lazy patterns on my thighs. "That I could feel this way, that two people could make me feel so—" I struggled for words, still floating in the aftermath of what we'd shared. "Cherished?" Owen suggested, his lips brushing against my temple. "Desired?" Levi added, his thumb stroking across my cheekbone. "Both," I whispered. "Definitely both." They helped me to my feet, their hands supporting me as my legs remembered how to function. Owen retrieved my dress while Levi poured fresh wine, both of them moving with easy grace that spoke of comfort, with intimacy. "Your husband is going to wonder where you've been," Owen said as he helped me back into my dress, his fingers gentle as they worked the zipper. "He trusts me," I replied, then paused, considering the implications of what had just happened. Maybe too much. Levi turned from where he'd been straightening his own clothes. "Do you regret it?" I looked between them, Owen with his rumpled hair and satisfied smile, Levi with his intense gaze and gentle hands, and felt a rush of warmth that had nothing to do with physical attraction and everything to do with the connection we'd forged. "No," I said firmly, "I don't regret it at all." The drive home passed in a blur of Miami lights and replayed sensations. My skin still tingled where their hands had touched. My body still hummed with satisfaction, and my mind struggled to process what had happened. I'd crossed a line I'd never imagined crossing, and yet I felt no guilt, only a deep contentment and a hunger for more. My husband was still at the office when I arrived home, giving me time to shower and change, to try to compose myself before he returned. But as I stood under the hot spray, memories of Owen's hands and Levi's mouth cascaded through my mind, making my knees weak all over again. When I finally heard his key in the lock, I was curled on the sofa with a book, trying to look casual, despite the storm of emotions and sensations still swirling inside me. "How was your evening?" he asked, dropping his briefcase and settling beside me, his arm automatically going around my shoulders. "Quiet," I lied smoothly, though my pulse quickened at his touch. "Just read and relaxed. How did the meeting go with your clients?" "Great, actually." Owen and Levi seemed very pleased with how things went. They mentioned they might want to set up another meeting soon, maybe over dinner. He pressed a kiss to my temple. "You'd like them, I think. They're good men." If only he knew how much I'd already come to appreciate them. "That sounds nice," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. Later, as we lay in bed, my husband's breathing deep and even beside me, I stared at the ceiling and replayed every moment of the evening. The guilt I'd expected never came. Instead, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years, awakened to possibilities I'd never considered. My phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number, but I knew instinctively who it was from. "Thanks. You for tonight. It was even better than we'd imagined." Oh, a second message followed quickly. "We can't stop thinking about you. When can we see you again?" I stared at the messages for a long time, my heart racing with the implications. This wasn't over. What had started as a single evening of passion had become something more complex, more enticing. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I crafted my response. "Soon, I'll find a way." The reply came almost instantly. "We'll be waiting. Sweet dreams, Isabella." I set the phone aside and closed my eyes, but sleep was a long time coming. Instead, I lay there planning, anticipating, already counting the hours until I could see them again. My husband stirred beside me, and I pressed closer to his warmth, but my thoughts were elsewhere, in a dimly lit conference room with two men who had shown me a side of myself I never knew existed. The next few days passed in a haze of normalcy that felt surreal. I went through the motions of my usual routine, morning coffee, yoga class, lunch with friends, but underneath it all was a constant hum of anticipation, a secret knowledge that changed everything. Owen and Levi were careful with their messages, never too frequent, never too explicit, but each one sent heat rushing through my veins. They'd send photos of Miami sunsets with captions like, "Reminds me of the way you looked in that light," or simple good morning texts that somehow felt more intimate than anything I'd ever received. My husband remained oblivious, caught up in the success of his new deal and the promise of future business with his valued clients. He even suggested we invite them for dinner, an idea that made my cheeks flush and my pulse race for reasons he couldn't fathom. "They really made an impression on you, didn't they?" I teased, trying to keep my voice light. "They're solid businessmen," he replied, not looking up from his laptop. "The kind of clients you build long-term relationships with." If only he knew how right he was. A week after our encounter, I found myself back at his office building, this time with a legitimate reason, picking up some documents he'd forgotten. But as I rode the elevator to his floor, my heart hammered with the possibility of running into Owen or Levi. The office was nearly empty, most employees having left for the day. I made my way to my husband's office, but paused when I heard familiar voices from the conference room. Through the slightly open door, I caught a glimpse of Owen's profile, his expression serious as he reviewed something on a tablet. Before I could think better of it, I knocked softly and pushed the door open. Both men looked up, and the immediate change in their expressions, surprise melting into something hungrier, made my knees weak. "Isabella," Levi said, rising from his chair with that fluid grace I remembered so well. "What a pleasant surprise." "I was just picking up some files for my husband," I explained, suddenly feeling shy despite everything we'd shared. "I didn't expect to find you here." "We had some loose ends to tie up," Owen said, but his attention was entirely focused on me, his gaze traveling from my face down to my feet and back up again with an appreciation that made my skin warm. "But I think we can consider our business concluded for the evening." The implication in his words was clear, and I felt that familiar flutter of anticipation low in my belly. The rational part of my mind whispered warnings about risk and discovery, but it was easily drowned out by the memory of their hands on my skin, their whispered words of desire. "The building's practically empty," Levi observed, moving closer until I could smell his cologne, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Your husband won't be expecting you back for a while." It wasn't really a question, but I answered anyway. "No, he's at dinner with another client, won't be home until late." The words hung in the air between us, an invitation and a confession all at once. Owen's smile was slow and knowing as he reached past me to close and lock the conference room door. What happened to me that night changed everything I thought I knew about desire, about myself, about what it means to truly surrender to passion. Have you ever found yourself in a moment where everything you thought you knew about yourself suddenly shifted? Where you discovered desires you never knew existed? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.